Welcome back in, everybody, to Birds 365, a Thursday edition of the show here, joined by John Stolnis now from Bleeding Green Nation. Make sure you guys follow John on X, at John Stolnis. Does amazing work for Bleeding Green. John, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Thursday morning? 3 days out from an NFC title game.
Yeah, getting pumped for another one of these things, man. I remember a time when it seemed inconceivable these guys would reach an NFC championship game. Man, remember the Buddy Ryan days, man?
Man. Nobody does. You got a whole generation that doesn't know, John. And hey, kids. You go past Buddy Ryan and really Dick Vermeil. You want to go before Dick Vermeil.
Yeah,
this was a wasteland.
Well, I mean, they went like 25 years between playoff wins from that game in New Orleans to the Dick Vermeil era. I mean, it was crazy. So this is. We're this generation of Eagles fans is clearly spoiled, but we're glad
spoiled and entitled.
In that spoiled column, John. I'm looking for wins, baby. I'm looking for Super Bowls, John.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Third one in 8 years at home. It's amazing. In this century, other than the Kansas City Chiefs, this has been the most consistent franchise. And I try to give Jeffrey Lurie. Jeffrey Lurie deserves a lot of credit. Obviously, he doesn't get it because he's not on the front lines. But to build this organization where they are, and this has become second nature. Third time in 8 years.
Look at what's going on in Jacksonville. Like, I mean, you have an owner there who, once fires Doug Peterson, but keeps a GM, a floundering GM, and they go through this first run of coaches, and none of the good coaches want to go coach there because they'd be tied to this GM that's a lame duck. And so now they fire the GM yesterday, and they got to go through these rounds of coaches. I mean, ownership matters, man. It really does.
Oh, yeah. Matters in every sport, as you know, as a baseball guy as well. And Jeffrey Lurie has proven to be, I don't know if it's the gold standard, but it's right there, certainly in the NFC.
Yeah.
Now, the first two times, 38-7, 31-7. I'll tell you what, coming into the game, because I covered both of those teams, I feel more confident about this team against Washington than obviously, the Nick Foles team where we were all like, what the hell is going to be? Minnesota was actually favored in that game. Right. Seems ludicrous in hindsight, but probably deservedly so because of the backup quarterback. And then San Francisco, everybody's like, well, that team's really talented. And they were until Hassan Reddick wrecked the game. This time, I'm like, well, they're just better.
Yeah.
They're just better. So that means it's going to be really close, right?
Yeah, it probably does. And you so there's a couple different ways that this thing can shake out, right? I mean, like Jaden Daniels is on such a heater right now that's what terrifies you about the Commanders, because at every other spot on these rosters, the Eagles are superior. And if Jalen Hurts is 100% and playing the way he can, he's as good as Jaden Daniels is. But we haven't seen that level of play from Jalen Hurts. He's played fine. They're winning. I think he's doing what they're asking him to do mostly. So I mean, I'm not one of those guys who's throwing a ton of shade on Jalen Hurts. He could be playing better for sure. With Jaden Daniels, one of two things is going to happen. The heater is going to continue. But I remember back when Mike Vick was riding a hot streak in 2004. He beat the Packers in Green Bay. The Atlanta offense looked unstoppable, and they came into Philadelphia in 2004, and the Eagles defense shut down the running quarterback in one of the best defensive games I've ever seen them play against a quarterback like that. And so I feel like that's one of the outcomes that can happen here on Sunday too. Is Jaden Daniels has been riding this hot streak. He's playing phenomenal football, but will it end? Will the ride end? And we've seen quarterbacks who go on heaters. It ends at a certain point, and maybe that's what happens on Sunday afternoon.
You mentioned Jalen Hurts there, John, and how this team has looked. Obviously, it looks a little different than I think we expected at this point in the year. Haven't talked to you in a little bit on the show, John. Yep. What's your take on it? You think this is a formula for Super Bowl? Obviously, there's a section of people that want to see a better passing game because they believe that's what we need to do to win a Super Bowl. But nobody seems to be able to stop Saquon Barkley. I don't know. Maybe we're just going to run to the Super Bowl, John. What do you think?
Yeah, we might. We certainly can win this way to get to the Super Bowl. Now, whether you can beat the Bills or Chiefs this way is another matter. I think those two teams are both pretty better than the Commanders for sure. But right now, the formula is working. And It's so funny. Like, we have been ingrained that to think that you need a high level passing game. You cannot win in the NFL without a high level passing game. But nobody has a home run hitter like Saquon Barkley right now. He's your big play threat. It's not AJ Brown. It's not Devontae Smith. It's Saquon Barkley. That's how you're making your splash plays, is in the run game. And so, yeah, I think you continue to lean on that until you can't. And maybe that happens on Sunday. Maybe the Commanders do what they did in the second half the last time these two teams played, and shut down Saquon Barkley. But, I think until then, you continue to focus on that, and you would like to know that you have the passing game in your back pocket. That Steelers game a few weeks ago does tell me that it's in there somewhere, that when they make a concerted effort to throw the football, they can do that. We're all worried about, Jalen Hurts' health, and that's still kind of a question mark. We know he's going to play, but how much is he going to play? But I understand a lot of the worries about the passing game, because you want to know that you have that tool in your toolkit. If something like what happened in the second half against Washington happens, where they really key in on Saquon Barkley and they're able to get stopped. Okay, can you switch it up? Can you throw the football? Can you keep up with this high-powered Washington offense? And that's the only thing that makes me a little bit nervous. But we're seeing that. There was decades where defense and running the football, that's how you won championships. And we were talked out of that over these last 10, 15 years, that's not the way you win championships anymore. The Eagles are going to try and show that you can still win that way.
Yeah. I always talk about it on this show, John. I've talked about it with you. It's not about you have to do this, you have to do that. It's about increasing your margin for error. I say it a million times. People are probably sick of me saying. And I think last week's game in the divisional round is a perfect example of this. The Rams are on the 13-yard line with a minute plus left, and they're ready to steal the game if it's not for Jalen Carter. They're ready to steal the game. On the first sack, in fact, Eagles defender slipped, and if Jalen Carter doesn't get that pass rush, we're all in autopsy mode. We're talking about what went wrong. And there is no way the Los Angeles Rams should have been in that football game, except the Eagles could not pass the football effectively. Obviously, it wasn't Saquon's fault. Obviously, it wasn't the offensive line's fault, 280 plus rushing yards. When you have that, and by the way, it was two back-to-back pass rushes on his 68th and 69th rep, Jalen Carter, the sack and then the hurry, which was, the fourth down play wasn't even a concern because Jalen Carter was on Matthew Stafford so quickly. But winning blinds everything. That's how close it was for being a disaster.
Yeah.
That I think is the concern.
With 280 rushing yards, all right.
Yeah, and we saw that against the Falcons in week 2, how they came back late in the game, and we saw that against the Commanders, obviously, in week 16, and that was what was going through my mind. It's like, not again. Is the defense really going to, after playing such a phenomenal game, is the defense going to give it up with 2 touchdown drives in the last 3.5, 4 minutes of the game? But I hear what you're saying, and when you get, last week was difficult because of the snow, and AJ Brown talked about that, but this is not a new problem. It's not a new issue. And I think it really comes into play when you're in the red zone or you're at the 30, when you're trying to score touchdowns instead of field goals. You can't score every touchdown on a 40+ yard rushing play. Like, those are rare. The Eagles get more of those than really any team should expect to get them. So those splash running plays are great, but they're really hard to pull off. And so what if the Commanders come out and they say, we're going to play 2 high the whole game. We're going to play 3 high the whole game. Jalen is not going to bust out a 40+ yard rushing touchdown against us. So we're just not going to let it happen. Well, now you're going to have to, maybe you're picking it up in 5-6 yard chunks and you're having 16 play, 85 yard drives that chew up 9 minutes of clock. I'm all for that. If that's the way we got to win the game, that's the way we got to win the game. But late in that game, when the Eagles got those 2 fumble recoveries and they're trying to extend their lead, they're trying to put a little cushion between them and the Rams. having a passing game that was working a little bit better might have enabled them to get a couple extra first downs, score a touchdown instead of a field goal in one of those different spots. And so that's, you want to know that you can do that. And so this weekend, there'll be no excuses as far as conditions are concerned or anything else. Everybody should be relatively healthy except for Hurts. Again, we don't know, but his arm's fine. So we'll, there shouldn't be any excuses in terms of inclement weather or anything like that. You just want to know that it's there when you need it. And that's what we're all not sure about. We're just not sure that it's there if and when they need it.
It was there in the Pittsburgh game, and you mentioned that. That's what I think a lot of us are holding on to, that they can pull that out, and hopefully they'll be able to do that. But John, talk to me about this defense, man. What a turnaround it's been this year from Vic Fangio, the way he's got some of these guys playing. First team All-Pro linebacker in the city of Philadelphia. John, who would have expected that? Just talk to me about what you've seen from them this year and how impressed you've been with what Vic Fangio has been able to do with the defense.
Yeah. The combination of Vic Fangio and some new young talent on this team has made all the difference. I think I saw a quote from him yesterday. He might have said it at one of the news conferences I didn't see, but I think told the team at some point this year, it's not your fault that you weren't working hard. Like the previous coaching staff was essentially not working them as hard as they should have been. And Dan Orlovsky, one of the national guys, has been on this for the last few weeks. Is like, no team in the NFL, no defense in the NFL is playing harder than the Eagles right now. The way they run to the football, the way they tackle, the way they blow things up that really should be going for big gains. That's the kind of stuff that's not necessarily on paper, right? I mean, that's the way that they're rallying to the football, the way they're communicating. That was such a huge problem last year. These guys communicating in the secondary, in the second level, linebackers, safeties, cornerbacks, passing guys off. That's just not an issue this year. And then you've also got new blood in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, massive upgrades over James Bradbury and Avonte Maddox in the secondary. That has made a huge difference for this team. But like you mentioned, Zach Bond, they've got to sign him this offseason. I don't care what it costs, whatever they have to do. I realize that means you probably can't re-sign as many players as you might like, but he has made such an unbelievable difference in the middle of this defense to have a first-team All-Pro linebacker that can just patrol the middle of the field the way that he does, make plays behind the line of scrimmage. He chased down a screenplay last week that should have gone for 50 yards and essentially stopped it and kept it to like a 10-yard gain just from hustle and instinct alone. That kind of play is unquantifiable, but it's the kind of plays he's been making all year. And then he had that one series in that game where he had 2 or 3 plays in a row where he was blowing plays up in the backfield, knocking passes down, recovering fumbles. He's everywhere. And it's been one of the most remarkable turnarounds year over year that I've ever seen any Eagles unit make, taking a team last year that was, by the end of the season, the worst defense in football. I don't think anybody can agree. They were the worst defense in football at the end of last year. They are now the best defense in football. I've never seen anything like it.
In Vic, we trust.
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. We all looked at this linebacker room coming into training camp and said, "Ugh." I mean, this is, people were trying to talk themselves into Devin White, John.
Yeah, that's right.
They he had a bad couple of years in Tampa, but he was the top 5 pick and yada yada yada. And all of a sudden, Zach Bond comes out of nowhere. Stories well told. Even Howie Roseman didn't sign him to be an all-ball linebacker. Vic got a look at him and said, "Yeah, I think he's an all-ball linebacker," and the rest is history. But also Nakobe Dean, and I want to talk about Nakobe Dean. Nakobe became the player we all hoped and envisioned when he was drafted out of Georgia, where he was a college superstar, and then he got hurt again. And the Eagles have been able to persevere without him. Oren Burks has played well, really well. Here's my concern. They haven't faced the receiver out of the backfield that can make plays. Josh Jacobs, great running back, more of a dump guy. They dump it off to him, and that can be difficult. That's what Saquon does here. If he gets an open space, can make a big play. But Austin Eckler, he can run routes. He can run angle routes, option routes, wheel routes. The first time they played, when Jaden Daniels was dealing with a rib injury, and they didn't look good, Austin Eckler did. He caught, what was it, Zander? 8 passes for 89 yards out of the backfield. And this time you don't have Nakobe Dean. You go back to last year's Super Bowl, it turned when Dre Greenlaw tore his Achilles and Oren Burks had to go on the field. And it turned because they attacked him in the passing game. Am I nitpicking too much?
Well, no, I think, Austin Eckler in the middle of the field may get his. I think if you limit Terry McLaurin, if you limit Zach Ertz, my concern is more about Zach Ertz than it is necessarily Austin Eckler.
You just know he's making a play in this game.
Yeah, especially down near the goal line.
Fourth and one, maybe.
Yeah.
I always go for it on fourth down.
Yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying about Austin Eckler, but I think if he has another game like he did in Philadelphia, 8 catches for 89 yards, I don't think that's what kills us. I certainly think that it's not ideal. You don't want the running back getting that much yardage, but the main thing that would really hurt us in this game is if Terry McLaurin has a big game, if some of the other receivers have a big game. What concerns me about the Commanders right now is the way they were moving the football with tempo and no huddle, and the way the Rams moved the ball against the Eagles late in the game with tempo and no huddle.
I think everybody looks great with tempo and no huddle. I think everybody looks good. The Eagles look great with tempo and no huddle. And nobody runs it. Where's Chip?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it must be difficult for some teams to do, but Jaden Daniels is exceedingly comfortable with it, and just so many of the short passes last week. I mean, against the Lions, he was just slinging quick hitters to McLaurin and to the running backs and everybody. It was a lot of screen passes, a lot of quick things, and that's the thing. It doesn't allow the defensive pressure to get there in time when he's doing that kind of thing. And Eckler could play into that in a big way. I mean, it's certainly a matchup to watch. I think it's maybe one of the few matchups that Washington has to their advantage. And if that's one of the few that they have, I think that's one that I can live with. But we'll need to see Oren Burks, and we'll see how much Jeremiah Trotter plays this week too. He didn't play at all last week because Burks was playing pretty well. So, I think that's a good matchup that could favor the Commanders.
John, talk to me about Kellen Moore. Okay, a lot of debate on him all year long and what people think of him in this offense and the passing concepts and everything like that. I had two plays last week that I hated from Kellen Moore. Everything else I think is, whatever. The bootleg with a banged up knee and the 5-step drop into the end zone on your 4-yard line with a banged up knee. I hated those two play calls. And as John always says, we judge results. I'm not judging the result here. I'm judging the call with the banged up knee there. What do you think of Kellen Moore? What do you think what he's done with this offense, and just your perspective on how much he might be an issue in the passing game, or maybe it's none at all for you?
I think it's curious where, Sirianni and Hurts and Moore, where are they, how they're coming to the game plans that they're coming to, right? Is this Kellen Moore in his lab cooking this stuff up, and then he gives it to Sirianni, and Sirianni green lights it, and Hurts is like, okay, coach, you got it. We'll do what we want. Or is this a matter of Kellen Moore is giving Hurts what he's comfortable doing and the kind of stuff that Sirianni, generally speaking, wants to do? I look at the route trees. I look at the things that they're doing. They're very basic. I mean, I see so many routes where you have the Eagles receivers running straight at a defender and then stopping in front of them and turning around. Just what's that? What is that? And there's there's a number of routes where you have one guy who's the clear first read in the progression, but then on the backside of the play, nothing's happening. Nobody's doing anything. We've seen Jalen also turn down some opportunities on 3rd and 4th reads. Either he doesn't get to them or he doesn't see them. So some of it is on Jalen, but as far as the game plan from Kellen Moore, I just don't see a lot of creativity. And maybe he's giving Jalen Hurts what he's comfortable with. Maybe Hurts isn't comfortable with the kind of offense that Moore would really want to call, or maybe this is the offense Moore wants to call. It's not creative enough for me necessarily, because doesn't seem like anybody's getting schemed open. Like we're not seeing like mesh concepts like we saw at different points earlier in the season. We're not seeing any rub concepts. We're not seeing quick hitters. Like they just haven't really had any desire to get the ball out of Jalen's hands quickly. They seem to be wanting him to take 5 and 7-step drops and looking 15, 20 yards down the field every drop back. And, when Jalen Hurts is going well, the ball's coming out of his hand when that back foot hits and he can let it go. I just don't think a lot of those plays have been there. So I would like to see more of that this week, especially if Jalen's knee limits him in terms of his scrambling ability and his ability to move around in the pocket. That might force Kellen Moore to put some more quick hitters in there, to do some things in the offense that gets the ball out of his hands more quickly and avoid sacks. Throw some more tight end screens. Love the tight end screens to Dallas Goedert. You know, they really do need. I don't like the bubble screens outside to AJ Brown when you have Devontae Smith blocking people. That don't do those. But you know, if you can get Saquon out on screens and work the stuff over the middle of the field, that can loosen things up a little bit, and I think that helps the run game too. So that's what I'd like to see from Moore here on Sunday.
My favorite play in football, John, the smoke screen to the receiver. Love it. I'm
Beautiful.
joking, facetious.
No, it's you know, it depends what you've
ugliest play in football. Ugliest
Yeah,
play. Even when it works, ugly.
Yeah.
Ugly.
Yeah.
And everybody runs it. In Chicago, they run it 15 times a game. So it could be worse. But I hear what you're saying. But here's the thing, and people get mad at me, but who cares? I'm gonna point it out. Mechanically, I'm not talking about success. They've had tremendous success on offense by and large through the Nick Sirianni era. Whoever the play caller was, mechanically, Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, Brian Johnson, Kellen Moore, it always looks mechanically the same. I mean, I think we got to look what's staring us in the face. It ain't the coaches. The coaches are building an offense the quarterback is comfortable with. And sometimes that looks ugly. Overall, I always point out, and I asked Nick about Brian Johnson, he's raving about him. What a great football coach. Well, why isn't he here? Because somebody's got to be a scapegoat. And ultimately, he's a scapegoat for the defense, really, because the offense last year was ranked 8th in the NFL. The offense this year was ranked 8th in the NFL. Now, obviously, people go to the second year of Shane Steichen because they made the Super Bowl and they say, oh, then it was great. Same damn thing mechanically. Same damn thing mechanically. Well, there's a little bit of difference because human beings are human beings. And in the moment, maybe Shane had a better feel than the rest of the guys. That's probably fair. But mechanically, I'm talking about, John, it's very, very similar. Why is everybody just going, fire Brian Johnson? Who cares if Kellen Moore goes to Dallas? We want Shane back because they won with Shane.
Yeah.
But other than that, Nick stinks. And by the way, I'll just say this, and then I'll let you go. Before Nick got here, Andrew Luck, Jacoby Brissett, Phillip Rivers, he and Frank Wright put together 3 different offenses in 3 different years. Everything points to they are building this offense around what the quarterback is comfortable with. Agree or disagree?
I think that's what we're looking at. I mean, you've had 3 different offensive coordinators in 3 years, and the offense has looked pretty much the same. It's either the offense the quarterback wants or it's the offense the head coach wants, because those have been the 2 constants with this team over the last few years. And like you said, it's been a decent offense. You know, they do good things. They rely on these receivers to win one-on-one matchups too often. And they can do that. AJ Brown and Devontae Smith can do that some. But again, we haven't seen them be able to perform at a high level when they need to in some of these games, late when they need that. You know, if this team's facing a lot of 3rd and 7s, 3rd and 8s, it's tough to really believe that they're going to succeed. And no team really succeeds when you've got a lot of 3rd and longs. But you know, I just have genuine concern that this offense, the way Jalen Hurts and the way the Eagles are playing it right now, is sustainable if you're getting yourselves into those kinds of situations. Like if it's crunch time, you've got a 3rd and 8, man, can you get that first down throwing the football? Or 4th and 6, you know, can you get that first down throwing the football? We saw them do it last week on that AJ Brown slant, and that was there. So, I mean, it is in there. I do believe that it is all in there, that they can figure this out. And even going back to that Steelers game, I feel like the offense looked differently in that Steelers game. There were different route concepts in that Steelers game that helped him get the ball out faster, helped him get the ball out quicker. I just don't know why we don't see that every week. I don't know why there's no consistency with that on a weekly basis. And so that's my big question. I agree with you. I think they're giving Jalen what he's comfortable with, but I think Jalen is comfortable with some of the quick hitters, the stuff over the middle, mesh concepts. You know, the play kind of play that Dallas Goedert had that big breaking run against New Orleans earlier in the season. Like we just haven't seen that kind of stuff over the last month and a half, 2 months or so.
Yeah, it's like they're teasing us with it. We'll say. I want to ask you about Jaden Daniels now. All right, John, because I was listening to Ben Johnson's opening press conference in Chicago yesterday, and he's talking about QB success and that being basically the number one predictor of wins and losses in the modern NFL. You know, overtaking turnovers, which used to be the biggest predictor of wins and losses. So obviously, a very important position in football. Well, they have the great equalizer right now, Washington. Like you said earlier in the segment, I feel great about every position on the field, but they got Jaden Daniels, who's playing as good as anybody in the league. I think he could be playing as good as Josh Allen or Mahomes has in this playoffs. I mean, in the last 2 games, he's been unbelievable. What do you see from him? Is he the most impressive rookie quarterback you've ever seen? And if you're Vic Fangio, what are you doing to try and get him off his spot and slow him down?
Yeah, he's clearly the most advanced rookie quarterback we've ever seen. No rookie quarterback has ever won an NFC championship game. And you'd like to keep that streak rolling along here on Sunday. But I haven't seen a rookie quarterback play this well in the playoffs ever. He's what he's doing is amazing. And the way you disrupt him is to pressure him up the middle. That's going to be the key to get Milton Williams, to get Jalen Carter in his face up the middle. And then you got to have integrity with your pass rush on the outside. You can't run past him and let him roll to the outside and make plays on the run and burn you for a 15-yard running play. It's got to be a disciplined rush from the Eagles here on Sunday in order to keep him bottled up in the pocket. And even when he's in the pocket, he can still make all the throws. And that's the thing that scares you about him. You might bottle him up and keep him from running, but he can still make all the throws. The thing you want to prevent him from doing is stepping into his throws, stepping up in the pocket. And the only way to do that is for your defensive tackle rotation to get in there. Moro Jomo is having a really nice first season for a guy who was drafted so late. But, you know, Milton Williams, Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, those guys have to get some penetration up front. I feel good about that matchup. San Cosme's out. It should be a matchup that favors Philadelphia. They should be able to get in his face a little bit. I think, you know, we look back at that second Commanders game the Eagles played, and we remember the game-winning touchdown that Jaden Daniels had, but we forget about the interception that he threw with 4.5 minutes left.
Yep, I said that. Last
really
5
should have
minutes.
sealed the game. That should have been nail in the coffin. If Devontae Smith catches that ball over the middle, they did give him one more chance, and then he went down and took advantage of it. But Jaden Daniels has played 2 games against the Eagles. The first game dealing with a rib injury, probably was not at his best. Eagles did a great job against him. Second game, the Eagles again should have won that game, and they should have taken advantage of that late interception by Daniels. So the Eagles know how to play him. They've played him twice. Nothing that he does is going to surprise them. And they have the personnel, probably the only defense in the NFL that has the kind of personnel that I think can slow Jaden Daniels down on Sunday afternoon. They just have to do it.
Yeah, it's always something boring, John. And I think that Sam Cosme injury destroys Washington in this game because he's their best offensive lineman. And I don't even know if he can deal with Jalen Carter the way Jalen Carter's playing, but he's a very good player. And obviously he's going to be, if he was healthy, he's going to be serviceable at the bare minimum. Now they're going to start Trent Scott, who's played very little, and say, go block Jalen Carter. And obviously they're going to slide everything to Jalen Carter on basically every play. But I really think that's going to be the difference in the game. But here's where we are with Jaden Daniels. And Zander could tell you, I got shit on by pointing out, hey, you know what, Eagles fans, Jaden Daniels is having a better season than Jalen Hurts. He's already got the rookie record, 46 completions in the postseason already. He's got 4 touchdowns in the playoffs, no interceptions, 116 passer rating. He's got 14 wins. You know, we talk about, you know, Jalen Hurts, it's about winning. He's got 14 wins with the Washington Commanders, who had 4 last year, I believe.
Yeah.
And have been a disaster for the entire Daniel Snyder era, basically. If he wins the NFC Championship game, he becomes the first rookie quarterback to start a Super Bowl if he comes out of it healthy. He surpasses Ben Roethlisberger for the most wins by a rookie quarterback ever. And it was interesting because Vic, we asked Vic that question. Is this the best rookie quarterback? And Vic's been around for 40 years.
Mhm.
And for those who know, Vic doesn't lie. And he sat there and he was thinking about it for 10, 20 seconds. And he went, yeah, probably.
He went through the Rolodex in his
Yeah,
mind, you know?
yeah. And he's like, yeah, this is the best rookie quarterback of all time. It's amazing. I think the Eagles are going to win the game, but and Zander pointed this out. This is if we want to make the basketball comparison, this is a Michael Jordan guy who can take over a game and beat you by himself. That's my only concern is Jaden Daniels.
Well, I hate to throw this comparison out because he is just a rookie, but he's playing the way Patrick Mahomes plays, right? Going back to that Super Bowl, it was 57. The Eagles outplayed the Chiefs in that game for most of the game. That was a Patrick Mahomes Houdini-act magic show. He won that game for the Chiefs. The Eagles had a better roster. Patrick Mahomes won that game. It's kind of the same thing here with Washington. Maybe not to that degree, because I don't want to say that Jaden Daniels is Patrick Mahomes, but he's playing at a level where he's elevating the rest of his teammates. He's elevating, outside of Terry McLaurin, a mediocre to okay receiving core. He's resurrected Zach Ertz from the dead. They don't really have a dynamic running game to lean on. So, Brian Johnson, Austin Eckler, they're okay, but they don't really move the needle all that much in terms of running the football. And the defense gets gashed on a weekly basis. So he's got to do it all. So you just wonder, at some point, will it all cave in on the Commanders? Where Jaden Daniels, it's just the run ends, and you think, okay, on to next year. Does the party stop, or are we looking at history? And those are the two options here. Are we looking at true history with the Washington Commanders, or does the party end in Philadelphia on Sunday afternoon to a degree? And I think it's one of those two things.
Yeah, I think people are in denial about Jaden Daniels. I mean, you get ripped in the chat for saying the kid is good. The kid is
Great.
playing.
I don't know how anybody
45 on the Lions, and everyone's like, the Lions defense stinks. They're still NFL players. There's still an NFL defense in the division round of the playoffs. This kid is a great equalizer, man. I would not take him lightly, but I do feel good about the rest of the game outside of him. But like John, I'm with John. I mean, I'm with John. What John just said, he has the ability to take over and keep this team in it. And if you're Vic Fangio going up against Cliff Kingsbury, what do you think of that matchup, John? He's been really good for them, Cliff Kingsbury. He really fits Jaden Daniels' style of play. What do you think of that matchup?
Yeah, and that's what worries me about this matchup is all the quick hitters, the tempo that Cliff Kingsbury likes to do. The Eagles are going to have to be really good. Eagles are going to have to tackle really well on Sunday afternoon, and they've been doing a good job of tackling over the course of these two games here in the playoffs. They're going to need to do that because what the Commanders want to do is they want to spread everything out. They want to get everybody out wide. They will go heavy some, but when Cliff Kingsbury is in his bag, he's got everybody out wide. He's creating space. He's making you run to the ball and tackle. And so the Eagles are going to have to do a good job of tackling on Sunday afternoon. I think if you're looking at just pure matchups, I would go with Vic Fangio over Cliff Kingsbury in a battle of wits here, based on what we've seen from Vic Fangio. But that's not a slight against Kingsbury. He's been fantastic this year for Washington. But I also look at Kingsbury's history and I realize how much of this is Kingsbury and how much of this is Jaden Daniels elevating even his offensive coach's game. And I think there's a lot to be said there for that as well. But I think Vic Fangio, maybe it's the first possession, two possessions. Sometimes with the Eagles defense and Vic, it's a feeling out process. What are they doing here? What are they trying to do to us? And then he dials in. We might see that on Sunday afternoon. Washington have a little bit of success early. The key will be mid-second quarter on, how are things looking? And that's if the Eagles can start to exert control defensively middle of the second quarter, I like our chances to end up winning that game on Sunday.
All right, at John Stolnis, make sure you follow John on the X platform. Does a tremendous job covering the Eagles for Bleeding Green Nation. You can read him over there. Hopefully the Eagles can keep it going down to New Orleans and he doesn't have to worry about baseball as early. I thought it was interesting. You brought up, what's the best inaugural season in Philadelphia history. And I'm glad you brought up Steve Carlton from 1972 because people are automatically going to default to Saquon, which has been tremendous. But anyway, long-winded, nice poll by you. Prediction time. Right. We haven't even seen, we're going to see Jalen Hurts on the practice field later this afternoon. So obviously you're right to change it, but your early feeling on this, again, third NFC championship game at Lincoln Financial Field in 8 years.
I think Jalen is going to be a little limited. I don't think he's going to be 100%. But obviously I don't think they would play him if he couldn't do a good job and if he wasn't somewhat mobile in the pocket. If he isn't as mobile, I want to see a different game plan for this team. I think I'm going to pick the Eagles to win just because I can't envision a world in which the Commanders, as the number 6 seed, come into Philadelphia and win an NFC championship game with a rookie quarterback, even one playing as well as Jaden Daniels is. This feels to me kind of like that Mike Vick 2004 playoff run where, he's on a heater and he comes into Philadelphia and the Philadelphia crowd, the defense just kind of shuts everything down and the Eagles win this game. But I think it's going to be close for a lot of the game. I think the Eagles will pull away in the fourth quarter. I'll say Eagles win this game 30-21.
Oh, I like it. Bigger than I was thinking. I'll take it, though. I'll take it, John.
It's close until the end. It's close until the end. A Saquon Barkley touchdown run with like 3 minutes left.
60 yards. 60 yards.
That makes sense. Yeah. And we've seen that enough for it to be a good prediction. So I'll take it. John, good stuff, man. We appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow John as the other John mentioned at John Stolnis on X. John, appreciate it, brother. We'll talk to you again soon. Maybe on the build up to a Super Bowl, maybe. Let
me know. Right. I'll be here.
All right, good stuff. Thank you,
Thanks,
John.
Bud.
Yep.
There's John Stolnis joining us here on Birds 365. Great stuff from John Stolnis. Love listening to John. It's been a minute since we've had John on, so good to hear him break it down and give us his thoughts on this game, John. I think Eagles fans are asleep on this Jaden Daniels.
Oh my God. How could you? I mean, come on, guys.
I really do. Look, people are telling me if he's a rookie, he's going to regret. Okay, fine. That's next year though. We're playing him right here, right now. Right now, he's playing like a top 5 football in the NFL. I don't care what you say. I don't care what team you're a fan of. He's that good, and we got to play him this weekend. So
I agree with those people that there will be adjustments. You saw it with C.J. Stroud last year, who had a great rookie season.
Yeah, but that's next year. Like, how does that have to do with this?
No,
game?
that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm agreeing with you. Not that, and by the way, not that Jaden hasn't been better. He's been better than C.J. Stroud last year, but people will adjust, and there will be hiccups down the road. Right now, I mean, he's playing the way he's playing. And they are where they are. And they've won 14 games. The Eagles have won 16 games. The Eagles are better. I've said that consistently. From the moment they beat the Rams, I said, all right, they're going to the Super Bowl. And I still believe that. But this player is special. And I don't see how anybody can debate that. But they can, obviously.
No doubt about it. We'll see how it all plays out this weekend. Johnny Mac should be a good game. John, I brought up that. Did you see that interview or the press conference yesterday with Ben Johnson? I know you were busy.
I saw clips of it.
Did you see that? I thought that was an interesting thing you threw out there about quarterbacks.
Well, I think it's kind of obvious, but I think his point was analytically, like, I think people default to turnover ratio. And he said quarterback play is a better indicator. Well, to me, it's kind of obvious. I mean, if you are a great quarterback, you're going to win. I always bring up Green Bay, because they had between Rodgers, Favre and Rodgers, they had about a quarter century of Hall of Fame quarterback play consecutively. And they always went into every game. I always joke about how entitled their fan base still is really. They went into every game thinking they were going to win the game. And by the way, they were right to think that way. Because when you have the better quarterback every single week, That is a better indicator of success. I think that's what Ben
Right.
was trying to say than anything. Statistically,
Yeah,
the best statistics are certainly, and the Eagles believe, if you win the turnover ratio, and that's what they've done this season, and you win the explosive play battle, their numbers will tell you, basically an act of God would have to happen to make you lose a football game. And that pretty much bears out over the long term. But to Ben's point, and Patrick Mahomes is the best example now. You got a cheat code. If you have the best quarterback, you have a cheat code. So, and I don't think Caleb Williams is getting to that point.
Okay, who's the better quarterback this weekend?
Well, the better quarterback is the better quarterback. Jaden Daniels is the better quarterback. It's not even a fucking debate. Stop. Stop it. Stop.
No, we got to stop it. Let's stop it on a Thursday edition of Birds 365. All right, we have an hour left to play here on this Thursday edition. We are inching closer to the NFC title game. We're going to dive into some matchups on the game. We'll take some comments from the chat, some super chats. If anybody has any and you want to put them out there. We will hit them all, even if they are in disagreement with what we are saying. That is perfectly fine. We appreciate all of you guys for being in here. Let's get to our commercial break. Before I do that, I want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Go check them out. We appreciate them for sponsoring the 2-hour show today. Use the promo code YouTube150. Gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. And you get 125% on your second and third deposit, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa and use that promo code. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.